Hello. Welcome to Film Conscious. Welcome back. If you're new, hello.
My name is Erin.
My name is Maddie.
If it's your first time here, hello. On this podcast, we discuss films and their various meanings and give our general take on them. We will chat about favorite actors, scenes, songs, and many other important film stuff.
Please like and subscribe.
This week, we're going to be chatting about the film Bones and All.
Bones and All is a 2022 horror romance film directed by Luca Guadagnino. That might be wrong. I'm so sorry. Following a young woman named Marin, who is played by Taylor Russell. She embarks on a 3,000-mile trip through the back roads of America after her father abandoned shortly after her 18th birthday. On her journey, Marin meets a young man, Lee, and over time they begin to form a strong bond. Together, they explore the world and try to get away from everything around them. However, both of their past and their dark desires follow closely wherever they go.
The film's meaning. This film is a coming of age, yet also a film following the lens of cannibalism. This film focuses on romance, highlighting themes like acceptance and identity. The human connection is a very important factor of this film, the ending of the film carrying the essential theme of sharing true connection or intimacy. This true connection or intimacy kind of connects to the trust and how love leads to death and remembrance, but also leads to the acceptance of death itself. Some trigger warnings: this film is rated R for bloody and violent content, as well as strong language. It is about cannibalism, so you have to expect it to be a little bit gory and bloody.
LGBTQIA plus resources are the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255.
All of these resources will be down in the description. Check them out if you need them. I wrote some things that we should touch on because there's some
Oh,
aspects of this film that are interesting.
there are.
Um,
This film is interesting.
it's interesting for sure. My first thing I wanted to talk about is how cannibalism is used as a metaphor. Um, that metaphor being addiction, but also this ties into intimacy and individual connection. I think it's interesting to use cannibalism as a metaphor to addiction. Addiction is experienced by people in many different ways, and there's so many different things you can be addicted to. But I was curious what your opinion on, like, you can even talk about cannibalism as a whole, because it's just a weird topic to have a film be about. But
It's like an intricate theme to use though for a film or any
yeah.
media that you're um on the topic of. I mean, for me, I didn't initially see it as addiction I until you said something. Um I kind of just thought of it as an intimacy thing for a lot of the characters. Maybe
Mhm.
not the two like random cannibals on the road, campfire, and
Yeah.
the wasn't like one of them. He wasn't an
Mhm.
eater. He was just a guy who was cannibalizing people.
Yeah.
That's definitely one part of the addiction that I would think.
Hmm.
For me, I thought it was more of like an animal instinct
Hmm.
rather than like a drug that you can just like keep going back to.
Yeah. I think just the addiction part, like, once you eat bones and all, that is like your first time. And after that, it's like kind of where it's more addictive, where like you can't
You're
stop.
gonna start needing more and more.
Hmm.
I feel like yes, it definitely can tie it back into addiction.
Hmm.
However, I feel like it's not like a thing that you can choose. I feel like for all of them, it's just become fate of just like you're gonna end up wanting more and more as you grow up.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of like similar, like with a vampire type thing, though. Like,
Yes. Yes.
you, like, once you start, you don't stop, and it gets worse and worse. But you could. I do agree you don't, as like a vampire, you wouldn't have the option not to drink blood because then you'll
Kind of
die.
like a life source thing. I mean, for them, I
Yeah.
guess they could live without it, but they would go insane.
Yeah.
Like Marin.
So it's hard because addiction can be like that where you do go insane if you don't have that certain thing.
I think it's definitely like the scene in the beginning where Marin
Hmm.
eats her friend's finger. That wasn't malicious. Like, she was not planning on that.
Yeah.
Like, she definitely didn't want to be in, obviously, she doesn't want to be in the situation where she's committing a crime, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
She wanted to just go to the sleepover because her friend was like, "Oh, I heard you wanted to make more friends. Let's get you some more friends."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Okay." And this girl is super sweet to her. There's
Mhm.
nothing that like she did wrong to Marin.
It was
She
kind of just an impulse.
It was an impulse, yeah.
Hmm.
Her friends like freshly did her nails, and Marin was looking at her hand and was like, "Oh, that looks pretty good, I guess."
Yeah.
In for it, it wasn't like
Hmm. How do you feel with the film kind of romanticizing cannibalism in a way?
I didn't picture. Yeah, I didn't picture it as them romanticizing the idea of cannibalism, but I found it that it was just like a beautiful metaphor for something else, a beautiful
Yeah.
metaphor for intimacy, like that end scene that we'll go into later.
Hmm. I think
Um,
that's similar to Call Me by Your Name. It's the same director. I
yeah,
mean, like, just like you're romanticizing something, but you're not directly trying to romanticize it.
it just happens to be
Yeah.
the
It
situation
happens to be
that man.
beautiful in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, like the age gap in Call Me by Your Name isn't the movie isn't about the age gap. The movie is about their love and how their age gap does get in the way because the guy ends up getting married.
But people criticize that, where
But
I
it wasn't the main theme that they were trying to
wasn't the main
romanticize.
theme. So I don't think this film was intentionally trying to romanticize cannibalism, but they slightly did, which is hard. But I feel like a lot of films do that. A lot of films romanticize things that they shouldn't. Like smoking is romanticized in a lot of
Yeah,
films,
yeah,
and it's not something that's healthy for humans.
yeah. I don't know. I think I don't think they were trying to romanticize it at all.
Yeah, I don't think it was
It's
intentional.
it was that because it was gory. It's not
Mhm.
crazy gory, but it's definitely there. And it's
Mhm.
not meant to be like cannibalism is okay. Like the characters are like, I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah,
Like, get me out.
yeah. The ending of the film is something else I wanted to talk about because the entire ending is kind of insane.
It's also not, see, it's not crazy. Like, there's no dramatic music. It's
Hmm.
just like the same kind of scoring for the whole end as well. Like, it's tense, but the music is like kind of ambient and subtle.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, it's not super amped up.
Hmm.
The ending is very good. I think it was very intentional that it was subtle because we don't see her take like a huge bite or like there's nothing like her like eating him
Yeah.
like how they would with the other characters.
Hmm.
It's just a
Yeah.
slow transition from it was her kissing, 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 and then she like I think she sucks, and then we can like see her like she begins to like gnaw at him
Hmm.
as a start to it, and then it cuts to that end scene.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's quite disturbing.
it
It's
is, but
hard.
it's so
It's so good, but also like I can't even fathom it. Like,
it's so tragic though, because then
hmm.
it's like that's her one person, and
Yeah.
obviously Mirren doesn't want to end up like she sees how her mom is
Yeah.
after loss and like grief and all of that. And then she loses her one person that she can relate to and loves and is so intimate with.
Yeah. I put down just a bullet point about the journey. It's 3,000 miles. I like that the setting is not one place. I do
Yeah.
like how when there's a journey, the setting is multiple places. A lot of the time is spent in a car.
All of their location changes, I think, were very fitting for the film. We have the carnival, we have like even the houses that they go to are very reminiscent of 70s, 80s. It takes place late 80s, but when we go to that like old woman's home, like the first person
Yeah.
eats intentionally with Sully. Sully hate that guy, but the first person that they eat there don't like him.
Had a visceral reaction.
Reaction. Her house is so 70s reminiscent and it's so like it's so nice.
Yeah.
Um Diner, carnival,
They were at like a few gas stations.
gas station, the supermarket
Hmm.
was like a small one. And then just like the it's just like the countryside.
Yeah.
It's very,
It was really pretty.
very pretty, very like homey. I think the journey itself can also mirror the journey that they go on with themselves,
Yeah.
which is like, yeah. Um,
There's some self-acceptance along the way.
yeah, they learn a lot by with each other and having that
Mhm.
connection because I
Yeah.
think that's so rare. Especially they're both eaters, which I mean, obviously in the real world, maybe there's eaters, I don't know.
Yeah, but we don't need to
But
talk about it.
we don't talk about it. But it's like if you're indifferent and you find someone who's also indifferent and you guys share this super strong connection, then it's like it's so special.
Kind of
Okay.
tying to that, I was curious if you believe that love is an addiction or an obsession, because some people explain love to be obsessive or addictive.
I
And personally, for me, love is a lot different than for a typical person. So I'm curious for you if you think it's an addiction or an obsession.
I think it can be. I don't think it always has to be. I think often when it is an addiction, there's something underlying that it's like that is unhealthy in the relationship. Not to say that
Hmm.
it's all love isn't healthy, but it's like if like I think there's definitely a lot of people who are in situations where they become addicted
Hmm.
to love because they want to be loved as one does. You
Yeah.
love, you want that comfort, you want that intimacy,
Hmm.
and then the fear of losing it makes it an addiction, I would think.
Yeah.
Yep. I think strong love and addiction are two separate things. They can go hand in hand, but they're quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing I brought up wanted to bring up was the gorgeous cinematography of the film.
Yeah.
But it definitely carries that feel, I think. Definitely a lot of like countryside, very rural area,
Yeah.
which I love. Such a summer film, I
Hmm.
think. And then I love how it's not like slam like horror. Like it's
Yeah.
very subtle. And like the scary parts, like they both get flashbacks
Hmm.
or have really like they have nightmares. Like her in one of her nightmares, her dad like pukes blood for a split second,
Hmm.
but it's always ambient music. Like it just makes the whole thing so fluid and like this like special work that I love.
Yeah.
Very good.
I tend to dislike horror. However, I loved this film. Because I don't like horror that like is I don't want to say cheesy, but it's like very like dramatically trying to jump
It's
at
not like a
you.
slasher horror.
Yeah.
It's very it's not it's like how I saw the TV glow
Mm,
is subtly horror. It's
It's
kind
just
of in
so
that.
similar to our real human experience.
Yeah.
There's not scary monsters.
It's not supernatural or anything.
Yeah.
It's very it's very grounded in reality
Yeah.
and the things that can happen.
Hmm.
I think a part that maybe we don't realize when we've watched it is like also there's a lot of focus on breathing with the audio.
Mm.
When they wake up from dreams, their breathing is very present.
Yeah.
I think that also adds to the horror aspect of the film. We can hear their breath quicken. Like at the end, we hear like Marin's breath slow as she's eating.
I would say that's similar to I Saw a TV Glow as well,
Yes, yeah,
where like your breathing and your reaction is more present.
it is. I think that's such a good touch. We because Owen Owen
Hmm.
in the film has asthma,
Yeah.
and a lot of the parts where there's like peak fear, Owen's asthma acts up, and I
Hmm.
think that's such a strong thing. Even when we don't realize it, that plays into that horror.
The entire film is extremely intentional, and there's probably a bunch of things that you and me did not notice about the film, but it's interesting some of these things that we do notice are really intentional.
It's fun rewatching films like this too.
It's not free on any platforms, but if you have access to it, you should watch it and rewatch it and then watch it maybe a third time.
Maybe a fourth time, maybe a fifth time. We definitely have different taste in film, but they
Mhm.
also, I think they can mesh really
Yeah.
well. And I think this is a very good middle ground.
Hmm.
And that matches the same for, I think I saw the TV Glow as well, which
They're not films that anyone anyone who likes happy, joyous films that aren't gory, you wouldn't like this film. But
mm,
me and Maddie love this film because it's gory, eerie, kind of sad, nostalgic.
tragic.
It's tragic. And that's what makes it good.
I don't know. I think Bones and All is just such a sweet, it's such a bittersweet film, just like how Call Me by Your Name is this bittersweet film. Same with I
Yeah.
Saw the TV Glow. The
Hmm.
endings are very open-ended and
Yeah.
tragic, but it's not the end of the world, you know?
Yeah.
My favorite actor in Bones and All is definitely Taylor Russell. Of course, I love Timothy Chalamet, but Taylor Russell is such a good actor and also just so pretty. Like they did so good in the film. Shout out to Taylor Russell.
I'm gonna be biased yet again and say that my favorite actor is Timothy Chalamet. A gorgeous human being, love him. But I do have to agree that Taylor Russell is literally gorgeous. The entire cast is honestly beautiful, other than the old guy,
Well,
Oli.
other than
He's
Sully,
probably, in real life, he's probably an amazing human being and actor. However, in the film,
super
terrifying.
scary, very freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like the sister, um, I don't know who plays the sister, but she was
Oh my God.
gorgeous too.
Wait, can I talk about that for a second? Hold
Okay.
on. I know who the sister is. The sister, um, for those of you who've watched I Saw the TV Glow, the director Jane Schoenbrunn made another film called We're All Going to the World's Fair. It's another like I don't want to call it horror because I don't know if Jane puts it into that genre, but the main character, forgive me because I don't remember her name, but she's played by the same person who plays as Lee's younger sister in the film.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
She
would
does
say that this film again doesn't have too many characters or too many actors in the film.
No, it's definitely limited casting. There's a lot of extras just for scenery,
Yeah.
but
Favorite quotes?
my favorite quote is one during a discussion between Marin and Lee during towards the end of the film. Marin says, "You protected the people that you love." Lee goes, "You don't think I'm a bad person?" And Marin goes, "All I think is that I love you."
It's a
And
sweet moment.
yeah, I thought it was so special because it's like you see this like very sweet bond between the two, and even though they're both aware that like what they're doing is wrong, it's just like kind of who they are, and they are that way together. And just because there are things that might be morally wrong to both of them that they're doing, that doesn't make them love each other any less.
Yeah.
Very
I said my favorite quote was again another little short conversation between Marin and Lee. Marin says, "I don't want to hurt anybody." And Lee says, "Famous last words." It's slightly sarcastic. It's a little silly.
And that's in the
Um,
beginning of the film too.
yeah. It kind of sets the mood between the two of them for the rest of the film. My favorite moment, I loved the entire film, but the carnival scene really spoke to me, and honestly, it's just a classic scene. Any movie or TV show that has any type of carnival aspect to it, I always love. Slightly creepy, but also romantic sometimes. It's fun to see both Marin and Lee having a fun time. They get to experience like a kind of childlike time at the carnival, even though there's some scary aspects to it still. It's has a light to it that the rest of the film, both of them don't get to experience because they're in a very dark space for most of the film. I enjoyed just the overall feeling of nostalgia. I've never been to a fair other than like a local fair that like I don't really remember much. So like I don't know why it's nostalgic to me, but just a carnival feels nostalgic. The colors of the place, the food, the music. Yeah, just nostalgic.
I think it's also just like carnivals and fairs in general are so central to childhoods in film, like in the film world. We always see fairs going on.
Yeah.
My favorite moment in the film is definitely when Lee and Marin go to the diner. I think this is more towards the middle of the film, but they go to the diner for the first time for breakfast. And not only is the diner just such like a perfect location to film at, I think it's also very nostalgic. I didn't go to diners as someone who was as in my childhood, I didn't go to diners, but I think it's very reminiscent of like the 80s. It's shot to be in the late 80s. So very I loved the cinematography of it all. But they also share this really sweet moment. Mirren asks Lee why he took her with him, and Lee responds, "You seem nice." And then Mirren grins and asks, "I am nice." Then Lee asks if he seems nice, and then there's no response. And I think that kind of he quickly skips over that and rushes to the bathroom. But I think this links back to the ending where we see his dilemma of whether he actually feels like a good or a bad person morally.
I think that would be difficult for anyone, like even not being a cannibal. I question if my like what I do is morally like good or bad all the time. So I can't imagine when you're doing such like conflicting things,
When you have heavier circumstances,
you would definitely feel like, am I really a good person because I have to do this to stay alive? But like, is it making me a bad person?
not to say that the things people do are not inherently wrong, but also it's just like I think it's so human. It's like
Mhm.
you're always going to have that dilemma of being on the spectrum of either good or bad.
Yeah.
and then falling in the middle is such like a gray space for that. Like no one's gonna be perfect. I think everyone's gonna have their own like dark secrets or desires or like the things that they keep in their head that they don't tell people. Everyone's gonna have that.
Yeah.
Overall rating, um that's really
Overall
overall
rating.
rating. We both give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's very fitting. Like it's not my number one favorite all time film, but it
Hmm.
is very close.
I think it could be top 20.
It could be my top 10.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right.
It's
Okay,
hard
right.
because there's so many films in this world, and it's just a difficult task. What if the most amazing film comes out and I just haven't seen it yet? So I can't give this film a 10 out of 10 because it's not the best thing I've seen ever.
I think it's hard because I think with 10 out of 10 films, I
Hmm.
have to watch it multiple times or I have to have not watched it for years and then I can say it's a favorite film because it's so like
Yeah.
ingrained in my past.
So I think a 9.5 is pretty good. Favorite song in the film? I would like to mention that the entire soundtrack is by two artists,
It is. It is.
which is
Trent
very
Renner.
special.
It is very special. Trent Renner and Atticus Ross. They did an amazing job with the whole score for the film.
Yeah.
Favorite song, probably I think in the whole soundtrack would be "You Made It Feel Like Home," but "You Made It Feel Like" is in parentheses by Trent Renner and Atticus Ross. Let's see. I definitely think this song had a big impact on me because it amplifies the end scene so much. It plays during during the scene where Marin eats Lee, bones and all, as Lee says. And it's so bittersweet because it's like the I'll read you the lyrics. Um it says, "In a world that isn't ours, in a place we shouldn't be, for a minute, just a minute, we made it feel like home." And it kind of captures this like fleeting joy and how life's like greatest pleasures are just temporary. Very sad, but I love that song. Yeah.
My favorite song, I would say, is I Am With You, in parentheses, You Seem Nice, by Trent Renner and Atticus Ross. I agree with Maddie. We talked a lot about just like the entire film being dystopian, feeling. I would relate it to The Last of Us if I don't think you've ever seen that, Maddie,
No, I haven't.
but a lot of people are raving over that right now because season two is about to come out. But The Last of Us, the game and the series, has an insanely dystopian feel to the entire thing, but the soundtrack is a big part of that. And I think if you just go and listen to this soundtrack for this movie, it's really weirdly dystopian. I would also relate it to like the Dune movies. Um, Again, just like sci-fi, but like not in a sci-fi, not a typical sci-fi way. There's a lot of repetition in the soundtrack as well. If you listen through the entire soundtrack, I listened to the entire thing while I was baking cookies. So it was kind of like a weird juxtaposition, but like the guitar patterns were really weird because like song would relate to another song and then it would relate to the next song. It was really weird.
They're interesting.
Um, yeah, it was interesting. Um, Yeah, the definitely like the entire soundtrack just adds to the horror aspect of the film. It's just dark and eerie. The song Destroyed is super eerie. If you listen to that one, it's weird to listen to.
Hey.
Favorite song of the week. My favorite song of the week, I would say, is Hellfire by Fever 333, 333, from the series Arcane. It's just a jam. Arcane came out with another soundtrack thing recently. They have
Like an
so many different
extended
ones.
soundtrack.
Huh?
It's an extended
It's
soundtrack.
an extended soundtrack, but like they've made so many different soundtracks just for Arcane, but I love it.
It's
Uh,
so well. They have,
it's
yeah.
so entertaining. I love it.
My favorite song of the week was Roses and Wine by Alani, ALA.NI. Super good song. I've been listening to that a lot. And then classic I Fall in Love Too Easily by Chet Baker. Very good song.
Yeah.
Would rate a million out of 10.
Some other media. People have been raving about Odessa, so I had to watch it. It was entertaining. I would say, definitely not top 20. One that's also been getting a lot of people talking is Adolescence on Netflix. I think there was only a few episodes, but it'll be interesting to see where they go with that as more episodes come out. I am so excited.
Oh,
Tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow they come out with a new season of Love on the Spectrum. I know there's a lot of controversy. However, it's entertaining. As someone who's neurodivergent, I feel like they're just trying to spread awareness, and it's a lot better than a lot of other reality TV. Like it's like a dating reality TV.
yeah.
So I would say this one's a lot better compared to a lot of other ones.
Okay.
It's a lot more family friendly, and I love that. I love it.
It's not like Love Island.
It's not like Love Island.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Shout
that
out.
just got me excited. I saw that on Netflix. I was like, oh,
Is that new?
there's quite a few seasons,
Okay.
but there's a new season coming out, so I'm excited.
My media of the week is Tokyo Godfathers. I have two movies. One of them is Tokyo Godfathers. Super good movie. If you've ever watched Perfect Blue, same director. It's directed by Satoshi Kon. It's a 2003 animated film. And it's so heartwarming. It's so good. So, so good. It's also very cool to see trans representation in the animation field. The character Hana in the film is so sweet. I think I think they did a good job. Um, but I think they also just fall flat in the area of like making the queer character comic relief, which I didn't like. Yeah, Tokyo Godfathers, but overall very good film. I did rate it a 4.5 or 5 star, as I do.
Every
Also,
film.
every time.
Mhm.
Also, Jack and the Cuckoo Clock Heart. Have you watched that?
Mm-mm.
That's free. You should watch that. It's good. It's free on YouTube if you ever want to watch it, but it's a French animated film. Also from I might be wrong. It could be from the early 2010s, but could also be from the late just 2000s. Um but it's like it's a French animated film, but it's also kind of like a steampunk alt rock musical. And the soundtrack is
Okay.
so good. And it carries a lot of underlying adult themes for a children's movie. It also has a very like tragic ending.
Mhm.
But it was one of my childhood favorites. There's this scene that I love from that movie where it's like the villain, it's two guys fighting for this one girl, but in school this villain is like singing, but he's doing like slam poetry
Mhm.
at this kid. It's really funny. Very good movie.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the end of our pod for today.
Thank
Uh,
you so much for listening and or watching. We love you.
love you, our
I
one
literally
subscriber.
can't
I
believe
hope you're still there. I hope you watch this.